Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and a direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Awesome, great. Well, listen, we are live. This is Advisor Talk Live. We are live here today in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. I'm joined by the head of recruiting at Ameriprise, Brian Mora. We knew each other a long time ago. Early on, didn't do business for a while because you were in a different channel. But I feel like as we got to know each other, we probably have a lot more to talk about that we don't, that we'll have our private conversation, and we'll sort of don't want to bore these people about our after work activities and workout routines, and all sort of passion things. So, but today I'm super excited to have you join us, and we're going to get into some things that maybe weren't covered your presentation here. And I really want to just get into the weeds. I'm just going to get into it because we have you have 39 minutes according to what Ben has told me. So, Brian, just for the audience listening in, just give a little bit of background, because I think it's important, especially with some of the questions I'm going to be asking you about leadership, about turmoil, and those things. Give the audience a little bit of background about your time at Ameriprise and what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, and anybody tuning in, thanks for the opportunity to get to know you better, or I should say, for you to get to know us better, both personally and the phone. Frank, I've been in the industry almost 25 years. I started my career with Ameriprise right out of college as a financial advisor right here in southern New Jersey. So I built a financial planning practice focused on client service, became a certified financial planner, and a mentor of mine who also is from New Jersey originally invited me into field leadership with the organization. And I've had a variety of different roles in field leadership with the company before becoming the head of recruiting. But most specifically, I ran and built a branch office. So for those in the industry that have been a branch manager, I've done that work. I've been a complex director in our employee business. And for a decade, I ran a portion of the company for our independent advisor business. We call Ameriprise Independent Advisors. I did that for 10 years. And then last but not least, I was a region vice president for an 8-state region across the Midwest. I make my home in South Florida, and I've been there for almost 20 years, despite a few different roles of leadership. And towards the end of last year, as we went through a senior leadership change in recruiting, I pursued and was lucky enough to be offered the opportunity to head up recruiting for Ameriprise. I'm super excited about that, and we've had a long, rich history in recruiting for the last 18 years, and I'm looking to continue that.
Awesome. So we're going to get into some things because, as I talk about Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, one of the genesis and the reasons why I started this podcast was to almost like be a de facto leader for financial advisors, to get information to them that I don't believe they're getting anymore. I don't believe that it's almost like being sort of like a branch manager to the industry, right? And so it's interesting that you have that experience, because I want to talk right now about not necessarily like what's going on in the market. We're not talking about tariffs and all that stuff, but with your background, I really just want to jump into. You made a point earlier on before we started doing this about leadership, right? And it sort of dawned on me that that's really poignant, because I think there are a lot of advisors managing practices today that one have never actually managed the business at all. Practice in a down market, right? They came in sort of post 2011 or 12. And so I think this is a new thing to them. But throw on top of that, maybe they're running an independent practice on top of that. So where I'm going with this long drawn out question is, as a leader in the business, what do you think, and how do you think advisors should be approaching what's going on right now, both as a practice owner and as a financial advisor? And is there any conflict there? Are there things that they should be aware of?
It's a great question and quite a bit to unpack. I'll try to make it brief in how I think about it. So the first thing I think is, at first, well, let's start with market volatility. While I'm not going to get into tariffs or my point of view on the market, market volatility at first blush most advisors or their teams, and certainly clients, would prefer it not to happen. When you actually think about what the best advisors do during this period of time, it's really where they do their best work and they make their mark, because what clients look for in an environment like this is not necessarily the next best product recommendation or the next best investment idea. Really what they're looking for fundamentally is a steady hand, calm, confidence, a reflection back to hopefully a game plan that was built that will help with this. So the question I like to ask financial advisors, and again, before I was in this role as head of recruiting, I spent, many, many years in leadership roles, consulting advisors. I would ask them, regardless of whether their tax status is W-2 or 1099, they're still entrepreneurs, regardless of what type of platform they affiliate in. So I like to ask them, are you a financial advisor who happens to do business owner things, or are you a business owner who happens to provide financial advice? And as we were talking before we went live, I said to your team and to my team, are you a recruiter that tries to give some leadership? Or are you a leader that happens to do recruiting? And the way you answer that fundamental question makes a big, big difference, because as a financial advisor, if you think to yourself, I'm a leader first and foremost, my question would then be a leader of who? Most advisors are definitely a leader of their clients, but most have also grown a business and evolved to where they need to be a leader of their team. So in an environment like this, what does your team see from you? Do they see you at maximum stress? Do they see you worried about the future of your business or the future of the industry? It's not to say you shouldn't be a human being and have any emotion, but how do you project leadership and give confidence to your team? How do you give that to your clients? And, from our point of view at Ameriprise, that's what we hang our hat on. I don't, when I talk to advisors that say, hey, I may be a bit underserved at my current firm and I may be open to exploring a change in partnership, I don't start by saying, let me show you all the products that we have that you don't have. Products have become a bit commoditized in our business. Or I don't say, although our technology is very good, I don't start with our technology. I start with questions like, what are you trying to accomplish in your business? What are your top needs? And what type of leadership are you getting right now? Who's helping with that? Because the last thing I would say on this topic is that I think one of the greatest myths in our industry is that most people, especially if they seek independent affiliation, I think one of the greatest myths in our industry is that people seek independence to be left alone. Achievement-oriented people don't want to be left alone. They don't want to be bothered with your agenda, or I should say with my agenda. They want the primary goal to be them and their clients, but they're looking for great leadership. They're looking for strategic advice and coaching. And I think that's missing in a lot of places in the industry.
So that's interesting, because Mike, sort of a great lead in. My next question, and I appreciate it, and I think that advisors should be really focusing on leading their clients. And leading their clients doesn't mean talking about really talking about their portfolio returns. It's the other thing, that's the softer stuff that I think the client wants to know that the advisor is thinking about them, generally speaking, right? And cares about their sort of mental state of mind during these periods of time. And there's things that I think advisors should be doing that can create efficiencies in helping communicate those messages out to their clients. I'm not talking about sending out some rando 4-page email about the state of the market. I think that I trained when I hear advisors say, well, I communicate to my clients by sending out emails. That's the worst thing. It's getting on the phone, it's sending out videos, things that make the client feel good, that the advisor has read the information, right? They read the firm research that communicates to them how they think about it. So if you're a financial advisor and you're going through this right now, you have to be thinking about how are you leading your clients, and then, which is also a concern, is how are you leading your team, right? Because even though you're the owner of the business, which I think a lot of people make this mistake, you have a responsibility to the people at your firm. People that they took a gamble and moved with you when you decided to move your firm because you got paid all this money, and now they're looking to you as leadership. And it's great to you want to work for a firm that has a leadership mindset in helping advisors, because I think there are a lot of firms out there that I'll just say are sort of the Costco type, right? Hey, we provide all the products and services, but you have to just go pick it yourself, and we're giving you a super high payout because that's all you're really getting from us. Yep. So my next question really is, when you think about Ameriprise as a whole. So this is going to be a little bit of an Ameriprise conversation to enlighten people. Talk about, with all the noise going on in the space, right? And I'm not talking about market noise. I'm talking about just who's buying who and other stuff. We'll get into consolidation also, but talk about how you feel like Ameriprise is differentiating itself through this noise.
Yeah.
And payouts, crazy payouts, 100% here and then fees and all this crazy stuff, right? How is Ameriprise differentiating themselves? Because they're continuing to grow. One quick snippet that I didn't know, and I've worked with Ameriprise for a long time, and I just saw this stat just before, and everybody made a big deal about when LPL hit $1 trillion, right? But the stat that you just put up is that Ameriprise is at $1.5 trillion. That gets no press. All right, that's a pretty big number. That gets zero press. Yeah. That's pretty incredible. So how is Ameriprise just differentiating themselves?
But it's funny, obviously, inside the company and being here 24 years, I feel like, everybody in the universe knows and understands Ameriprise because, I've been here half my life. I was basically a kid when I started, right? But I think not only is the level of assets under management that we have and we administer maybe not known to the audience both in the room and online, but even just the size and scope, we may still be the best kept secret on Wall Street. Fortune 250 firm. I think a lot of the information that exists in the industry today, Frank, is maybe known from our American Express days when I joined the company 24 years ago. And some of your listening audience will know, but not all of them will know that in 2005, this October, will be the 20th year anniversary of our firm being a separate publicly traded company from American Express. And in the Amex days, I'll get to your question in just a second about the differentiation today in 2025. But one of your folks in the room asked me during a break, hey, there's still some thought or belief out there about the Amex days. And there was nothing wrong necessarily with the firm in the Amex days, but we were not an externally focused organization. We were internally focused, hiring kids out of college, training individuals, and we still have great training, but we were training people, licensing them, primarily focused on a bit more of a financial planning and proprietary product model. And it's interesting, 20 years publicly traded, number one performing stock in the S&P 500 financials, $1.5 trillion in assets, 5,000 experienced recruits that have come from regionals, wires, independents, RIAs. And some people are still like, are you owned by American Express and do proprietary business? It's like, wow, we still have to correct some of that and tell the story. And what I would say about your question, how are we differentiating ourselves? We sit in a really great sweet spot in the market, I feel. So that sweet spot for advisors that like to affiliate in a supported branch model that typically would have looked at wires or regionals, we have benchmarked our firm in the W-2 space against those firms, and we have carved out a space where we can provide better economics. So when an advisor looks at the actual 10-year, 15-year total economic output, it will be superior to their current W-2 model, whether we're talking payout rate, transition package. We've also built more infrastructure around administrative support to provide support to advisors at better ratios than our W-2 competitors, more liberal marketing policies to be able to brand and market themselves, not just on their website and LinkedIn, but broader social media branding. And we've done some really unique things. I talked about it with your audience here before we went live on the podcast in the W-2 space, that we're the only W-2 outfit that allows an advisor who's W-2 affiliated to buy an external practice purchase, and we help them not only find it, do the due diligence on it, onboard it, but we finance it at no interest. So we've found a way to do some unique things that none of our independent competitors do. When you look at the independent space, I'll go back to the leadership piece. I think a lot of independent firms have misunderstood the advisor's intention and definition of independence to say, we've swung the pendulum so far that if you need help, there's no help to be found. Or the firm may be more focused on just growing the firm, look at the consolidation, buying other companies, and it's really caused a drop in service to the existing advisors. A data point I shared with your audience earlier was that our back office was recognized by J.D. Power for outstanding service for 6 consecutive years, and none of our competitors have even achieved that in 2 consecutive years. So we're really hyper-focused on it. If we have an advisor that's serious about client service, we too should be serious about serving them. And I think in the independent space, that's how we've really made our differential, is by providing great leadership, great support, a small leader to advisor ratio, a back office and technology that always works, that's always available, that's always reliable, and it helps advisors unlock growth that we don't see at our competitors.
So unlocking growth, let's talk about that, because we use this term compound pounding, and you talked about it a little bit before, and it was an interesting stat about the growth of advisors at Ameriprise, which is another, I think, one of the best kept secrets. Can you talk about why compound pounding is so important as it relates to advisors at Ameriprise versus other firms?
Yeah, I think, so first of all, our average annual growth rate for advisors is 11%. And I've talked to plenty of advisors in my career who said, well, Brian, that's not very impressive because my firm grows at 15 or I grow at 20. And I say, well, wait a minute, it needs a little bit more context. Our average across 10,000 advisors growth rate is 11. That's more than 4 times the average independent advisor growth rate, or even the average wirehouse growth rate. So if we just start talking firm averages, the average in the industry is about 3 to 4, and ours is 11. Which means even if you, Frank, grow at 15 or 20, our data would say we're going to add a delta to your growth rate that gets to your phrase of compound pounding. Why that's so important? One of the most important things, especially in the independent space, that advisors will spend a lot of time evaluating and doing due diligence on is the expense infrastructure of affiliating with a broker-dealer or an RIA. I don't find typically that they spend as much time evaluating the growth infrastructure of the partner they have and saying, would it be worth spending a little bit more money in partnership, coaching, strategic direction, if I could move my growth rate from 3 to 4 or 5, 10, 11, or 12, or even if I could move it from 15 to 20? I gave your audience a quick mathematical example and said, if you were producing $1 million today at an 11% compounded growth rate, in 10 years, you end up producing $2.3 million. At that 3 to 4 industry average, you end up producing about $1.3 million. So it's quick math. That's $1 million difference in terms of a cash flow I would enjoy for my family. And for most advisors, they're also focused on their net worth and the equity value of their practice. Now I have $1 million delta at a 2 or 3 or 4 times sale rate. That's $2 or 3 or $4 million more net worth in terms of the equity sale. And so when you start to just get down the rabbit hole of micro analyzing or being hyper focused on just expense, I think you're missing the other side of the equation, which is, what am I getting for the expense that I have today? Which is either the W-2 outfit that I'm connected to or the 1099 outfit I'm connected to.
So when we dive deeper into that, and again, the reason why I thought it was so important that you covered your background, because this next question really is about, if you look at your time in the field, right, both as an advisor, but that like you, that was sort of a long time ago, but you've gotten to experience and got to work closely with really successful Ameriprise advisors, both on the what we call the P1 side, which is the W, and on the franchise side, the P2 side. There are, I'm sure, common themes that you see with the most successful advisors.
Yeah.
You can just share a few of those, and it's not relative to what's going on today, but it would be interesting to know, what are they doing differently today than maybe sort of the average producer, right?
Yeah.
What are those common things that those top advisors are doing that are growing at that 15, 16, 18% that the other advisors, even at 11, aren't doing?
It's a great question. So I'll start first with what I believe about the mindset of those that I've interacted with. This is part of you and I get to talk offline.
Nice conversation.
Yeah, enjoy each other's similar philosophies just on, grit and focus for success and mindset. But I would say that growth-oriented advisors do have a keen focus and a bit of an obsession on staying in growth mode, and connected to growth mode, they stay in learner mode. You'll find that the most in my experience, the most high-achieving advisors don't walk in the room and think they're the smartest person in the room. They may be very comfortable and confident in what they've built and what they've achieved, but they've probably walked in the room to invest the time to see if there's a nugget or a piece of wisdom or someone's looking around the corner. And I think that's a lot of what they look to from our field leaders who are fantastic across the country and to the firm in general. Is I like Ameriprise's partnership because they're looking around the corner and anticipating where, as Wayne Gretzky famously said, where the puck is going. And so the first thing is, it is a mindset that I'm going to continue to learn and I'm going to continue to grow, even if I don't need to make another dollar of income. The second one is it is an obsession with the client service and the client experience, and knowing that in today's environment, I'm really not going to be able to compete, or I don't want to compete on price. Most advisors don't want to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, the greatest value I can offer to you is to continue to cut your fee to be the lowest cost provider in the environment. That'll be a tough road to sled in terms of, the existence of lower cost providers, robo platforms. So they have a real obsession with their client experience and actually expanding value. They're examining, saying, I charge X today for my overall services. How do I add more to that? It could be a concierge who has a little bit more high touch, or, sends appropriate gifts to the clients, or the events that they do. They just have an obsession about the client experience. And then the last one that I think is super important is they have a real purposeful focus on their team in two aspects. They're anticipating what their organizational chart is going to need to look like in 3 to 5 years. They have a long-range plan for their business. There's a war for talent in the industry, and I don't mean firms competitively recruiting the financial advisors. I mean the financial advisors looking for the next successful administrative assistant and operations partner, the next junior advisor. There's not an abundance of great people in those types of roles, and having a firm who helps to partner with you to seek those people out, find ways to hire them, find the right ways to train them, give you advice on how to compensate and retain them. Your entire human capital strategy is something that, if neglected, will cost you growth. And if you invest in it, both in your mind and in your time and money, it will unlock more growth. And we try to provide a lot of partnership to the advisors so that they're not alone in that pursuit.
Yeah, I like to call that the who, not how, right? So I follow Dan Sullivan, which is strategic coach. That's not a plug for him, but I just came back from there. And one of the most impactful books that I read that he wrote is the book called Who, Not How. And that's essentially surrounding yourself with really strong people that like to do those different things. Yeah, pay for them.
Correct.
Because you'll get way more by paying that than try to, be cheap and have everybody max out their capacities. Just get some growth there.
And I haven't had the chance to participate in that, but I think one of the other fundamental questions that program asks you to examine is, what is your unique ability?
Yes.
I find a lot of financial advisors are down rabbit holes working on things that are not their unique ability.
Right.
If you're the advisor and you're calling the back office, if you're the advisor and you're handling email and compliance because your system and your company is inefficient, you're wasting time, nowhere near connected to your unique ability. You got where you got because you're probably really good at the planning and investment side and the client relationship side. Financial advisors should be spending almost none of their time on doing anything but that.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah, I think that's a rabbit hole that advisors go down when part of our discussion of the last couple of days is, does an advisor go RIA or whatever? And one of the risks that I always talk about with them is you're going to move away from your unique abilities really fast.
Yep.
Right? You spent years building a great practice, finding assets, socializing with your clients. You had that personality. Well, when you start to spend 20, 30% of your day on compliance and operations, all of a sudden you're going to wonder why your business is growing as fast. That's why.
And you're less happy.
Right. So I'm going to just, before I move to the next question about, I want to get into sort of like industry consolidation, but when I was a manager back in the Smith Barney days, one of the things that I used to irk me, because you talk about fees and lowering your fees and all that other stuff, but I think that there's a really nasty trend in the industry where advisors feel like they need to lower their fee. They're like almost embarrassed to charge a certain size fee. But Ameriprise, and you have a philosophy in terms of the value of a fee. How do you communicate to advisors about, and then these top advisors, the question is, these top advisors, are they communicating to their prospects and their clients that they are a little bit, more, a little bit pricier, or they aren't going to discount their fees because they provide higher level of service? Are you seeing them be comfortable communicating that, or are they just not saying anything and hoping the client doesn't ask?
Great question. There's a couple of things to unpack there. I think the first thing is, in my experience, most advisors, I'll say full service, full value, full charge advisors as compared to discount and robo platforms, very few of them are leading with such a bold statement that says, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you compare me in the marketplace, you're going to find me to be a higher fee. Just the same way that if I go on we're at the Westin, if I go on the Westin's website or the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton, they don't have a banner that says we're the most expensive hotel chain. But if I call them to try to negotiate a better rate because a lesser hotel chain is much cheaper in town, they don't typically take me up on the negotiation. They'll say, well, we charge what we charge because, the quality of our rooms, the quality of our sheets, the quality of our service. We have 3 restaurants. We have an amazing pool. We have a spa. They'll reiterate the value. And they may even say, if we're not in your price point, it's okay. But the customers who come and stay at our property, they value these 5 things that we just talked about providing, and our competitors don't provide it. So what we try to arm advisors with is, that might, as I say that might seem very obvious to someone listening in the audience, but no one maybe has coached them through how to stand their ground on their feet and explain 2 things: what value they do deliver and how to expand that value. I've had very similar conversations over my career with people that are exploring a change of firms, and they may say, well, is Ameriprise the single highest payout in the industry? Is Ameriprise the single lowest expense set in the industry? And I say, well, we're not typically in the independent space. We're typically not either of those things. We're incredibly competitive on payout and expense, but we've expanded value to where I don't think any other firm has. And that often resonates with an advisor who runs a very similar practice, where they go, I'm not the cheapest in town, but I provide a lot of value and I've expanded a lot of value. So I think the advisor that successfully affiliates with us, stays with us, and joins us, aligns to that philosophy of, I want to give and do a lot more, and I'm willing to potentially pay a little bit more or charge the client a little bit more.
Right. And it's okay to say to a client, hey, listen, I'm not interested. Look, I'm just not right for you.
Correct.
The services that we provide maybe you're not interested in, and that's okay.
Yep.
I think that's a lesson that I want advisors to take from this, is that it's okay. That
completely.
when we talk about our marketing services for our marketing company or our data solution services, I always tell those prospective clients, listen, we are not the lowest cost provider, because we provide much more customization that tends to be clients that come on board with us. If that's not what you're looking for, that's okay.
It's okay.
We'll part ways. Hopefully you got some free advice from me and you can use some of that, but this is just who we are. I like to set the stage right away. So,
exactly.
So in the interest of time, I want to switch gears and move away from like practice management, because that's what I love to talk about. But there's been a lot of noise lately in terms of the market, and we'll cover sort of 2 things in one question, right? And that is the consolidation of what we're seeing in consolidation in bigger firms, LPL buying Commonwealth. Doesn't matter what particular ones, but just a lot of consolidation, which I think you would probably agree is not going to stop anytime soon. And there's also a lot of new money coming into the space, whether it's private equity, family offered dollars. I believe we still have yet to see the flood of money coming in from private outside investors. What is your position, or what is Ameriprise's position, number one, on consolidation?
Sure.
And when are you or not going to be sort of getting into that game of consolidation? And then follow up to that, because it's sort of a consolidation question. What is your position, or Ameriprise's position, on the state of like PE coming into the space, and it's good for advisors and not good for advisors?
Yeah. I don't think I would be so bold as to say Ameriprise is never going to get in on the acquisition of other firms. We'll sit on the sidelines completely. In fact, in our history, we haven't necessarily done that. We in 2008 saw a business opportunity and purchased the advisor arm of H&R Block. It was H&R Block Financial Advisors at that time, and we have many advisors that are affiliated with the firm from that acquisition that are thriving, successful, incredible members of the organization. And of course, several years later, we expanded the firm into a full third business channel, which is our financial institutions group. When we purchased Investment Professionals Inc. Out of San Antonio, led by our GVP Jay McAnally, who runs the institutions group business. So it's not as though, and in asset management, we've done some acquisitions as well. But I think I give that context to say we have done some, to then tell you that that's not the core strategy and focus of Ameriprise. We're not focused as much as we have 10,000 advisors. We're very competitive in the recruiting space, Frank, and we want to continue to attract great advisors to the firm. Our singular goal, and this is from our chairman down, is not to necessarily be the biggest firm in the industry. So our focus is not who's for sale next and can we just buy them and buy everybody that's for sale. It's kind of ironic that a lot of the firms being purchased, the advisors who affiliate with them are fiercely independent. They think that they're in control of their destiny and own their business and control their future, and now they're being told, you're going somewhere else. It's kind of ironic.
It is, isn't it?
But as a result of that, our belief has been the best way to grow Ameriprise is to tell our story to one entrepreneurial advisor at a time. Like we were talking a few minutes ago, the ones who we think are a great fit and they think they're a great fit for us. Let's make that a partnership as opposed to trying to buy 3,000 advisors at one time and say, congratulations, you're now part of Ameriprise, whether you want that or not. And then being in the sea of competition of trying to convince them to take our retention deal while other people are calling them and all of that disruption's going on. So I don't want to say never ever, because if there's, the right firm with the right strategic fit and we think it would be great for them and their clients and great for Ameriprise, maybe we'll do that. But we're not in that race every day asking ourselves, how do we just pick up another 3,000 and another 5,000 and another 1,000 and doing that? Because the last thing I'll say about it can and likely does come at the expense of the existing advisors and their clients. And so I feel very confident that our advisors don't feel a strain in our back office. They don't feel a distraction from their field leaders focused on just how to integrate the next acquisition. Our advisors feel the back office functions well, the technology's steady, reliable, secure, available, and the field leader's highly engaged. And you lose a lot of that when you're just trying to buy companies. So again, not saying never, but that's not a core focus. On PE, I think private equity is interesting. On one hand, the multiples that private equity are offering advisors have, I think, been a good advocate and have pushed equity values up. So for those that are at or nearing an exit, private equity entering the space has given a nudge to make your business a bit more valuable. But what I find, and this is maybe just my own experience within the walls of Ameriprise, most advisors who are planning out their succession, while they want a really, really fair price and they want to be compensated for a legacy of all of their work, they're also concerned with who takes over their business. They're concerned with the human being in their town. Do they have the same value set? Like, I think the reason we connect, we have a lot of the same values, right? So it's easy to feel good about doing business with somebody when you have similar values. Does this advisor that I'm going to turn my business over to share my values? When I run into my client in the grocery store or at church or at the ball field, will I feel good seeing them at 2 or 3 years from now, looking them in the eye, knowing that Frank's their new advisor and I didn't send them someplace for potentially an aggregated service or something else? And I think that's what's still undefined into the future about that part of the business. So I think it's been productive to some extent because it's been an advocate or been a help to help drive the equity value for some of the advisors. But I don't know that it's solved for that personal feel, that personal connection, the conversation I'm going to go have with the Smiths to tell them, I too have realized my dream of retiring and I'm going to exit the business, and I've done a lot of due diligence, and Frank is the person I've selected because he shares these same philosophies or business values, and you and your kids and their kids are going to be in great hands with this film. I think that's missing in that disruption in the industry.
About you made a point earlier today about this, and I started thinking about it. Yeah, so we look at PE firms or these consolidators, right? And they're consolidating practices with an exit, some type of exit in mind. What do you say to advisors that are thinking about joining that type of program, right? For me, if I was an advisor, what I would be concerned about is, are you going to be paying attention to me? Or are you going to be paying attention down the road for that transaction? And what's going to happen to me along the way, right? We talk about growth and all this other stuff. Do you see that as a real big problem? Have you seen that as a problem?
So I haven't seen it as a problem yet. I haven't necessarily be part of the solution because it's such a relatively new entrant to the space. But without repeating everything I said before, I think the prevailing interest from most advisors today, I mean, look, I don't know, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 will simply say, as I exit the business, the thing that I care most about is the single highest price that I can maximize for my business. And whether it's your firm or this firm or a different broker deal or a PE, whoever's going to give me the top price is going to be where I go. I'm going to guess the majority of people that are listening on the other end of that camera are not saying, yep, that's me. They want to say, well, I'd like to know what a fair market value is today, but I also care about what the focus is of whom I'm selling to, and is the preeminent focus of who or what I'm selling to the client experience, the client relationship, knowing the intricacies of that family and what differentiates the Smiths from the Joneses and the family dynamic, and reading the notes and all of those dynamics. And so I think that could actually be a problem that rears its head down the road as people start to take advantage of that option and lose some control, especially as people are not necessarily always doing full sales of their business. They're selling a portion of the business, and now the hooks are in.
Yeah, my concern that I frame somewhat vocal about is whether it's more so in a partial sale than a full sale, right? In a partial sale, I've come across advisors that have done partial sales and they regret it, right? Because what they realized is, okay, I got this money. I would have made that amount of money anyway in 5 or 6 years. So it's now that period of time, and now I don't have that money. My business is growing, so they're making more money on me, and I sort of have a boss to a degree, right?
Yeah.
It's funny how a partial sale turns into like a real partner and a someone you got to ask questions to, right? When they're not used to doing that. And so,
well, that could be an interesting topic. Other one.
Oh yeah.
Like what questions before you enter into that kind of an agreement? What types of questions are the 10 questions to ask? And
because
find it interesting to find out what the answers are.
Well, because for most advisors that are going through that's probably the one and only time that they're talking to an acquirer, consolidator, whatever you want to call them. And so they're learning as they go. On the other side, though, that consolidator, whatever you want to call them, has had all sorts of conversations and has powered attorneys setting up documents and knows the lay of the land. And it's sort of like a minor league baseball player playing against a major league, right? You're just in over your head, outmatch and support. So be really careful about that. So just finally, right? We talk about all this stuff, and this has been great. For the advisors that are listening online, right? Someone that's thinking about making a move, I'm not saying they're a Commonwealth advisor, just in general. Maybe they're a Morgan Stanley advisor, right? Or Merrill Lynch advisor. And they're thinking about what firm options are out there. What is the right type of advisor that you've seen be the most successful that joins Ameriprise?
Yeah. So it's somebody that wants to live. I've referenced earlier in our talk that we sit in a really great sweet spot in the industry, and that we've benchmarked our W-2 branch business, even our institutions business and our independent business against our competitors to find out the right balance of these 4 things for advisors. Best-in-class economics. So an advisor who wants to maximize both their growth rate, which means their cash flow, their equity value, but then what I would call the company investment in the business and in them, whether it's in staff support and integrated technology, best-in-class economics would be number 1. Number 2 would be an obsession with client experience. If you run your business and say a differentiator for me and my community is the way we service and bring value to the client, and we want a real partner that would help us elevate and maximize that, that is our preeminent focus. The third would be technology. We've made hundreds of millions of dollars. I heard you on a recent advisor talk give us a nice shout out as one of, in your perspective and in your firm's perspective, one of the top 2 leading technology platforms in the industry. I'm glad that you, as an unbiased third party, recognize that, because our technology team, both in human capital and in monetary investment, has put a tremendous amount into that. And then I'll end where we started, leadership. In that we have incredible advisor to leadership ratios, leaders that have no other mandate. I think this is the point that I think is most important. They have no other mandate at the organization other than helping advisors grow their business. They don't have a product mandate. They don't have banking, lending, annuity, insurance, fee-based business. They don't have any of that on their scorecard to drive for the benefit of the firm. Their mandate is talk to an advisor about their business plan and what an advisor wants to achieve in their business plan, your goal is to make that happen, and you get rewarded if you make that happen. And so leadership's a differentiator from us, and I'm really proud of it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. If you're one of those advisors, for sure, reach out. You can obviously reach out to me. You can email me at frank@eliteconsultingpartners.com. Where's Stacy in the room? You can email Stacy at stacy@eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget Stacy with an E, as she says. She's my my lovely co-host normally, so she's certainly not that you're a bad-looking guy, but she's your co-host. So anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Frank.
This is great.
And we appreciate it. Yep, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.